The great Cliffjumper. No, I'm not with the Decepticons, so don't be quick to want to blast me. Are you sure I can trust him? I think he wants to blast me anyway. Hello everybody, Sparkster1701 here. And today we're taking a look at another Generation 1 toy. This is Cliffjumper. Cliffjumper was available at retail in 1984. He would also be available in 1985. He would disappear from retail in 1986 and would be a limited mail-away figure. Now, as you probably saw in the distance there when I bumped the camera, Cliffjumper did come in a yellow variant. The yellow variant was available on retail shelves, but was also meant to be pushed more in the Listen and Fun line of toys that Hasbro put out. The Listen and Fun series would include a storybook and an audio cassette to go with it. They did this also with G.I. Joe and My Little Pony. But there are exceptions to it, as there are pictures online of red Cliffjumpers being on the Listen and Fun sets as well. So, any way you look at it, you can easily find a G1 Cliffjumper. Both of these guys are the 1984 variants, as they have this. It does not have the rub sign on it. The yellow one here still has his Autobot insignia. This one here, this Cliffjumper here, was my very first Transformer from back in 1984. And despite not having his arms able to stay up and no rub sign, no insignia sticker, he is actually in relatively good shape. Not perfect, but which of us is? Throughout the Generation 1 cartoon, Cliffjumper was voiced by actor Casey Kasem, who most famously was the original voice of Shaggy in the Scooby-Doo cartoons. Kasem left the series while Season 3 was in production over an episode that depicted Arab people as evil. While he had no problem with the episode showing that there were some Arabs that were evil, there was none in there that were being presented on the opposite side of it. So that led to him leaving the show, and I can understand that. It was a time when everything was getting politicized, unfortunately still happening to this day. And it really didn't need to encourage all of us to believe that certain people were evil just because in that region of the world there were people committing very evil acts. So he left the show and Cliffjumper was taken off of the cartoon. So, a bit of a shame, really, but there are some, though, that do notice the irony that Cliffjumper got to do the countdown for the rocket launch, since Kasem was also a disc jockey and had a series running on various radio stations, which included a top 40 countdown. I used to occasionally hear some of it on Sunday mornings when I would be going for the local paper. I don't know if they still do that now because I no longer go for the local paper on Sundays. It's a ripoff. At any rate, we'll take a look here at Cliffjumper's articulation. He only had it really in his arms, where you could rotate the arms at the shoulder all the way. I mean, you could move his ankle joint, but that's more for transforming him than any other real purpose. To transform Cliffjumper, you start by taking his head and folding it down into his body. We come down here to his legs, fold the feet down flat, and then slide them up into his body. Make sure the arms are lowered, not really necessary on this one, and slide them inside. And then there you have it. Cliffjumper is in his alternate mode of a sports car. Specifically, he's a Porsche 924 Turbo in a super deformed package. So that gives us a nice little car. We'll do the same here real quick with the yellow version. And then there you have it. You can see both of them side by side. A couple of cute little cars. And of course, like many of the others, you can just barely make it out on mine, but if you get it in the right light, you can see Dunlop is molded on the tires, so it's a nice little detail. How well does Cliffjumper roll on those tires? Fair at best. But of course, seeing as mine is 40 years old, at least he comes to his skids quite nicely. Let's look at this yellow one. That one does it a little better. I guess mine's just worn out from play. But at any rate, now of course, since Cliffjumper has been around for the longest time, there have been modern versions of him made. Of course, to show all of them is impossible since I don't have them. But I do have a couple of them that I will show off here. So we do have this one here. This is the Earthrise version. One of the more modern versions of the figure. And then, of course, that one was redone up a bit in color to become the Studio 86 version, so that we now had a cartoon-accurate Cliffjumper. And of course, while I didn't get him out, not too long ago, we did a video on the Gamer Edition Cliffjumper from him appearing in the War for Cybertron video games. So, Cliffjumper still does get around. Excuse me a second. It's thirsty business doing this filming. At any rate, we'll get his file card. We'll get his card backer here. Thank you again, Larry, just the same. This here is the 1985 card backer. Because right here it would have had him in the robot form. Then it has an insert picture here showing him in the car mode. And strangely, it has him in the yellow car, despite the fact that he's pictured as red on the card backer. Turn it around on the back, we have the 85 mural that showcases Jetfire and a red version of Trax, but primarily is mainly to show off the Dinobots and the Insecticons. Then it also has up here the instructions for the rub sign that came out in 85. And then right here it has the instructions to turn him from robot to car. At the bottom we have a barcode and his robot points. Cliffjumper was worth half a point. Turn the card over to the side and we will see his tech spec bio. It's done up in red to signify he's an Autobot. It even says Autobot above his picture. And the picture itself is a slightly different angled version of the picture on the front of the card. Cliffjumper's function is warrior, which pretty much basically means soldier. And a quote associated with him is, "Strike first, strike fast, strike hard." "Let me at 'em" is Cliffjumper's motto. His eagerness and daring have no equal. He's driven by a desire to win the battle against the Decepticons. Finds Earth terrain a hindrance. One of the fastest Autobots. Often uses his speed to draw fire away from others. Shoots glass gas, which makes metal as brittle as glass. Excuse me. His recklessness often leads to actual blowouts and situations too dangerous for him to handle. Which that was depicted a few times in the cartoon. Cliffjumper was always eager to attack the Decepticons without thinking of potential consequences, or to make sure that he was entirely covered from counterattack should he miss, or to make sure some like Laserbeak weren't hiding in a spot nearby where they could attack his flank. Now we go over here to his tech spec numbers. Normally we would need a decoder to read the grid, but I can read the lines just fine. It gives his strength as 4, his intelligence is also 4, his speed is 7, his endurance is 4, his rank is 5, his courage is 10, his firepower is 7, and his skill is 5, so while he definitely has courage and some decent firepower and speed to get away when he needs it, Cliffjumper's really about average, maybe even a little below average in some of the other stats. So now we get to my thoughts. Well, Cliffjumper's one I'm always going to love, especially since this one, again, was my first Transformer. The only thing I got against having him around is the fact that it seems that most of the media tends to ignore some of the facts that are done on Cliffjumper. They're too quick to kill him off. And while, yeah, that is always a possibility with his recklessness, it would be nice to see a version that's done back the way it was done in the cartoon, where he'd at least still be able to live to fight another day. In the hopes that maybe he would learn a lesson from what has happened and hopefully improve his skills as a warrior. As for this toy itself, well, it's pretty good. It's about what you would expect from a small Transformer. He has a basic yet simple transformation, so it was easy for younger kids to get a grasp on how they can be changed. Unlike on a lot of the modern ones, which almost seem to take in a full manual just to figure out how to get it from one way to the other. And even at that, you're not always quite certain. So maybe it's time Hasbro takes a look at some of the originals to see what made many of them successful. And that's my review of the Generation 1 version of Cliffjumper. I hope you all enjoyed it. Please do remember that if you love the content we feature on this channel, I would appreciate a like, a share, and a comment, and subscribe if you haven't done so already. This is Sparkster1701 saying I will catch you all later.